On this, the first day of the NFL draft, we'll go through the options for both the Rams and Chargers and the hopes that USC and UCLA players have to get selected. Darvin Ham hopes a quiet film room will drain the Lakers of bad vibes from Denver, and UCLA basketball might have found a replacement for Bona. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos morning report. So it is April 25th, 2024. Once again, the sanctum sanctorum of LA sports is alive and well. And if you like being in the know about LA, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that and let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. We have tons of football to talk about this morning. But before we get to that, we're going to take a look at the scoreboard. London Knack gets his first Major League win. Shohei Ohtani hits 3 doubles. By the way, he leads the major leagues with a .371 batting average, and the Dodgers collected a season-high 20 hits. Dodgers 11, Washington 2. Meanwhile, Anze Kopitar ties the first-round series between the Kings and Edmonton at 1-1 with an overtime game winner. Kings 5, Edmonton 4. The Kings said they took the Game 1 loss personally, and they answered the call. Gave me that recollection of a young Kopitar in 2012 netting a game winner on a breakaway in their first Stanley Cup run. By the way, Adrian Kempe scored twice. Meanwhile, today, Denver is at the Lakers at 7. Game 3 of the first round of the NBA playoffs. Denver leading 2-0. Christian Wood had previously targeted this game for a comeback. Not happening. And the Dodgers are at Washington at 1. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is 1-1 with a 4.50 ERA. Mackenzie Gore 2-1 with a 3.60 ERA. Now, I want to preface everything I'm about to say by noting that this is the one day out of the year that I will entertain NFL mock drafts, because mock drafts are doom-scrolling trash. There is so much false intel, imaginary intel, that comes from these things. Most of this just basically comes from the fantasies of a bunch of addle-minded pajama boys who think that winning their fantasy football league actually makes them qualified to be a real GM. And it doesn't. But you can spot trends. Maybe have some of these trends backed up by actual scouting reports. And so perhaps we can deduce a couple of things. And we're going to start our coverage with the local pro teams. The Chargers might be the most intriguing team in the first round, particularly in the top 10, in the sense that they could be the ones that make the first major trade. And we've discussed this at length in the last few days. If you have any potential franchise quarterback slipping out of the top 3 picks, voila! All of a sudden, that number 5 pick that the Bolts have look really, really freaking enticing. So the other problem that other teams are going to be facing, though, is that the Chargers front office has made it no secret. They want to win any trade for the number 5 pick. Not make it win-win. Not make it a fair deal. They want to overwhelmingly win the deal. The Athletic is reporting that 3 teams have reached out to the Chargers for that pick, including, here's a surprise, 2 division rivals. And that would include the Raiders, I might add. Also Denver. Minnesota is the 3rd team that's allegedly reached out to the Chargers and could probably put together the best package out of the 3. The Vikings, for example, have 2 first-round picks this year. Much of the pre-draft chatter has been about how the Chargers will probably take an offensive lineman, or maybe just the best player available, which would probably be a wide receiver. And they do need something, honestly, to fill the abyss left by the departures of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. But I have a slightly different take. I think they have major holes on first-string defense. Interior defensive line, linebacker, reserve defensive backs, if you're not talking first team, you're talking second. I think they want to trade down now, absolutely, because they have so many gaping holes now on their first string, particularly on defense. If they do not make a trade in the first round, but I think they should, and I think that they're trying to see how much capital they can gouge out of their opponent, out of their trade partner. I would guess receiver at 5, not offensive lineman. Because the starting tackles this year are actually pretty damn good. People were saying at this point last year that Rashawn Slater was going to be inked in, not penciled, inked in, to protect Justin Herbert's blind side for a decade. So why the hell is everybody trying to hype up Joe Alt for right tackle as opposed to left? When did Rashawn Slater start sucking? Because from my recollection, he didn't. And then you might say, well, what about guard or center in the offensive line? And nobody's going to take a guard or center that high in the first round, not a 5. I don't know if guards are often getting taken in the first round in the first place. Meanwhile, for the Rams, today marks the first time in Sean McVay's tenure as head coach when the Rams will actually have a first-round pick. Now, that would be maybe, assuming that they don't trade out of the first round either. If you recall, the last time the Rams had a first-round pick, that came in Jared Goff, and Jeff Fisher was the coach back then. I agree that if they keep their pick, I agree with the consensus that the Rams are likely to look at defensive front. The question, though, becomes, are they looking at interior defensive tackle or edge rusher? See, Aaron Donald's retirement absolutely weighs heavy on a lot of our minds, mine included. But take a moment and consider that traditionally the second most important position to NFL front offices. Quarterback and a guy who slaughters the quarterback. In other words, rush end, not defensive tackle. Then you go and you say, well, before drafting Donald, the Rams, whether they were in St. Louis or whether they were in Los Angeles, would always build formidable defensive lines. Does anybody remember the fearsome foursome, right? The St. Louis Rams line, when Donald was a rookie, included Chris Long and Robert Quinn. Those guys were not slouches. Now, one of the many things that made Donald a first ballot Hall of Famer was that he was a defensive tackle who could still get to the quarterback. You could even line him up at, wait for it, rush end. In other words, Donald was a unicorn. Now, I see quality prospects at number 19, but does anybody see a unicorn there? So, again, defensive tackle, or the second most important position to front offices, rush end. One of the curiosities about the Rams' approach to the draft is what they're going to do about quarterback. Now, Matthew Stafford is obviously the starter. He is 36. They signed Jimmy Garoppolo as the primary backup, but Garoppolo is 32, injury prone, and he has admitted that he is using the Rams to rehabilitate his career, much like Baker Mayfield did a couple of years ago. And so you're saying to yourself, well, okay, what about the future? This brings us to Stetson Bennett, a fourth-round pick last year who was MIA for the entirety of the regular season, and nobody outside of Bennett's circle or the Rams front office knows why. We still don't know. Bennett has taken part in off-season training activities, in other words, film study. McVay told ESPN Bennett, quote, looks good. He's had a good look in his eyes. He's been attentive at meetings, unquote. Now, if you're like me, you love Sean McVay, but you're also asking, what the hell does that mean? Now, Bennett does strike me as one of the most immature 26-year-olds in football history. But I don't imagine him falling asleep in class like it's junior high. So the question is, not in the first round, But do you take a quarterback? Rounds 2 through 7. Do you? It has been widely assumed, going to our local colleges, that Caleb Williams will be taken first overall today by the Chicago Bears. Now look, if that is the case, USC football will be the will have 6 number 1 overall picks since the so-called common draft era began in 1967. And that is going to be the most of any school, kind of. It would break a tie with Oklahoma, but if you remember, Williams actually played for the Sooners as a freshman. It's just hard to remember him with Oklahoma because he won a Heisman with USC. Now, the last Trojans player to be taken first overall, it's been a spell. That was Carson Palmer back in 2003. He was taken, obviously, by Cincinnati. As for who else could be taken, because Williams is definitely going early, and he's definitely going tonight. You're looking at safety Kalen Bullock. Now, I've seen some mock drafts with him in the second round. Probably third, but many have had him going in the second. The rest of the possibilities of USC players being taken in the NFL draft, you're going to have to wait for day 3. You're going to have to wait for Saturday. 4th round or later. And the names that keep popping up are Marshawn Lloyd and receivers Brendan Rice and Taj Washington. As for the current state of USC football, just jumping away from draft talk for a moment because I want to make sure I got this, I don't want to confuse this too much. As for the current state of USC football, let's just say Kyle Ford is a very confused young man. The former USC receiver is he transferred to UCLA, and now he's transferred back to USC. Welcome back. I mean, seriously, you look at your first team and then you scream, "Screw this, guys, I'm playing for your rival. Peace." Then you look at your rival and you scream, "Hey, Toto, there's no place like home." It's a lot of drama for somebody whose career has been pretty underwhelming. He'll give you about 20 plus catches a season. Now, how did he explain coming back to Heritage Hall? Glad you asked. Here's what he wrote, quote, "My fault, I was tripping. #committed, unquote. I'm Catholic. Kind of reminds me of the last time I went to confession. Quote, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I was tripping. My bad. #holier than thou." Kyle Ford, confused young man. Back to talking about the draft. As for UCLA, the mock drafts that I have been looking at, the ones that go all 7 rounds, suggest that as many as 5 Bruins players could be selected. Now, there are edge rushers, hint, hint, Rams, hint, hint, led by the top sack artist in the nation, Laiatu Latu. Now, he is expected to be a first rounder. A couple of people think he's going top 10, but many mock drafts actually do have him being taken by the Rams at pick 19. This would make him, regardless, being the first Bruins player to be selected in the first round since 2018. This was back when both quarterback Josh Rosen and offensive lineman Colton Miller were taken. Now, if Latu does slide to the Rams or further, honestly, it's going to be a steal for whatever team that takes him. Probably. And yet this draft is so offensive skill heavy that despite the fact that, as we discussed earlier, edge rusher is a priority position, Latu could slide. And the reason, by the way, that I say slide, and the reason I say probably a steal, is because he had neck issues when he played for the Bruins. Gabriel and Grayson Murphy are edge rushers that could go probably day 3. Same for linebacker Darius Morsau and running back Carson Steele. They've been included in a few mocks. They guaranteed to be drafted? No. Could they go? Yeah, day 3. But I have seen Gabriel Murphy go in the 3rd round, which is day 2, in a couple of drafts. So you let me know what you think about the local schools and the local teams in the comments. Meanwhile, Darvin Ham said he's been utilizing film sessions to separate the players from their emotions of a brutal Game 2 loss. If you think about it, the Lakers had Denver where they wanted them twice. They had a 12-point lead in Game 1. That didn't happen. 20-point lead in Game 2, and that didn't happen either. So Anthony Davis, at the end of Game 2, said the team had stretches where they didn't know what they were doing at either end of the floor, which sure as hell to me sounds like a jab at the coaching staff. To which Ham replied, quote, "You have to understand why you failed at something. It's not just, we failed, let's scrap the whole plan and go this way. No, you have to understand why things went the way they went," unquote. Which is fine. That's fine. But Ham then described the situation with Davis as one where they would have to agree to disagree. Agree to disagree. How many of you agree with me and agree to agree that that quote is actually a little alarming? I'm not saying that Davis is right. I'm not saying that Ham is right. I never heard Pat Riley saying he had to agree to disagree with Magic. I'm saying Phil Jackson never said he agreed to disagree with Kobe. They went into the office and hashed it out. You don't go with agree to disagree. That's just weird. The LA Times believes Mick Cronin has landed a replacement for Adam Bona, who left the program to go to the NBA draft. Center William Kyle III is coming from South Dakota State. He won the Defensive Player of the Year award for the Summit League, a league I've never heard of, and was described as a tremendous star with tremendous upside. Here's the thing that is not quite as tremendous. Look, yesterday I noted that all the players coming to USC basketball were from mid-major programs. South Dakota State doesn't even qualify as mid-major. More like anti-major. More like minor. So yesterday I was saying that you could question the Trojans additions because they're mid-majors. You can't ignore that this guy is from South Dakota State and all of a sudden he's going to be the next great UCLA center. Which, by the way, it's been a while since UCLA has had a great center. The rest of UCLA's work in the transfer portal, let's be real, it has been really damn good. The other four are from major conferences. They've all scored in double figures, which leads you to wonder just how different the Bruins starting lineup is going to look next year. You could easily envision a starting lineup of point guard Dylan Andrews, and for the rest, maybe as many as 4 of the 5 that came in from the portal. Just saying. Now, where does Kyle fit in here? Because he would be the center. If they say, you know what, we are going to ask all the other 4 to generate offense and we just want Kyle to be a rim protector to grab rebounds, then yeah, I could actually see where that's going to work. I can. But let's not make it sound like this guy is the next Lou Alcindor or Bill Walton. Now, if UCLA wants to make any more roster adjustments, they have no more scholarships to offer. Somebody would have to go, or somebody would have to try to figure out how to survive in LA without a scholarship. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread again. Talk to me about what you think could happen with the Rams, Chargers, USC, or UCLA. And if you enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We talk LA sports every single day here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.